Kristin Bock, and I teach at Drexel. I direct a graduate program in publishing here, and I am co-editor of the Painted Bride Quarterly um, with Marion Wren, and I publish creative nonfiction and memoir, and that's it for me. Marion?
Hi, I'm Marion Wren. I am the director of the writing program at NYU in Abu Dhabi. I've been co-editing Painted Bride Quarterly with Kathleen for 20-something years. I publish personal essays and memoir and scholarly articles on the history of journalist training programs. And Michelle, how about you?
My name is Michelle Johnson. I'm a senior English major in the undergraduate program here at Drexel. And I'm also a poet.
Wonderful. And Miriam?
I'm Miriam Heyer. I'm calling in from New York City. I started with the Painted Bride Quarterly as an intern in my freshman year of college, and I stayed with them. So I think it's about 9 years now, and I'm really happy to be on the call.
Woohoo. All right. Let's get rolling. We've got a lot to get through today, and let's see what unfolds. First up, we have Kristin Bock's Compound, and this is a prose poem in rap text, and I'm going to jump right in on this one. Compound. Come stand in the garden. Let the soft rain rinse you. Line up with the others. Hold hands. Now, kiss. Imagine your mind is a blue rose rinsed clean. Hide in the bushes. Wait for the little black stars to squeak by. Step on them. Stamp on them. Some will feel like urchins and under your feet. They will whisper terrible things. Step on them harder. They will cry out. They will have your mother's voice. Run. Catch the stars and squeeze until they burst. They will be slippery. Their black oil will leak into the earth. Now your hands are dirty. They're filthy. Go back to your spot in the garden and stand like a flower. Do not move until your skin becomes blue and clean and cold. Take off your dress. You are dirty inside. Open your legs to the rain. Your mind unfolds like a blue rose. Hold hands. Now you've been bad, very bad. Today you will not eat. Today you will stamp on the little black stars until your feet are raw. The stars will squirt and whimper. They will sound like your father crying in the shed. Step on him. Make him cry harder. He is dirty. Your mother is dirty. Come to me. Come to us. Open your legs. Let us rinse you. My brain is as big as a cat. My brain is as big as a mountain range. I will bend my fat red brain over you like a blood-soaked rose. I will sing to you and wash you and starve you and love you like no other. Now go back to the garden and plant yourself where you belong. Okay.
Okay, Compound, Kristin Bock. Well, I'll jump in and say there's something about the quality of these like violent and compassionate images, and this just the surreal quality of the prose poem that gains my attention. It's commanding, and it's also baffling, right? Which is, I guess, part of the surreal quality. So I wonder if anybody else has a sense of what this poem is up to.
I don't know if I
Anybody?
can answer. Well, I don't know if I can explicate it in any way. I don't know if I can answer what it's
Yeah.
up to, but I think I like that it's all in directives. That adds to my pleasure in reading it. I think I wanted to be the one that read it out loud so that I could hear it aloud and be the one reading it and feel those words for a second. Um, of course, I had read it on the page, but it's different to hear it.
Well,
And I
I
think,
think that the fact that it starts, I didn't know if it was talking to me at first, like, you come stand in the garden, you let the soft rain rinse you. And
mm-hmm,
when we got to the come to me toward the end of the poem, I realized I wasn't in my story, I was in someone else's story.
mm-hmm,
And I think that that was a really, it was a good choice because it makes you kind of immediately in the middle of the action, and then you realize that there's actually two characters here. There's one talking to another, and you're in the conversation in a way that is so much more personal, because for me, I thought that the person was talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we can ask the question that we often ask at the table, and that is, yeah, this is really weird, right? It's really weird. We can't, it's very difficult to have a literal explication for it. Do you want to hang out? Do you want to spend time in this strange place and try to figure it out?
I was commenting on the fact that this poem is saying to step on these little black stars, but also saying that they will have your mother's voice at the beginning of the poem, and then again mentioning the father. I was wondering like how that relates to what the poem is saying about like whoever the speaker is talking to about their parents.
Yeah.
And why the poet would tell the speaker would tell whoever they're speaking to step on something having the voice of their parents.
Right. And toward the end, it's brutal about the dad, right? Keep
Yeah.
stepping on the
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
And he
yeah,
says,
yeah.
he is dirty, your mother is dirty.
So Miriam, did you want to jump in at this point? Because I
Well,
do want to speak back to what Michelle was saying, but go ahead.
no, I was also thinking about the dirtiness, and the the voice itself is paternal, right? It's almost like you have to deny your own parents in order to listen to this voice.
Mm-hmm.
And this is this is something that is calling previous relationships unnatural, to make the relationship between the speaker and the person that he or she is commanding be one natural relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they have to deny their past
Right.
in order to.
And who are all these others,
Yeah.
too? Hold hands, line up with the others. The hold hands comes up a couple times. Who are all the others?
Right. So for me, it's like, come stand in the garden, right? And let the soft rain rinse you. Those the first two lines of the piece. Like for me, I'm already doubling back to the title, which is compound. And I kept thinking the title is slippery, right? Because I almost want it to be compost, right? There's something really like earthy and mucky and dirty, right? Like there's something about like your hands in the soil, like the dirt of soil, and this sort of like moistness, right, of the earth, right, that seems to be kind of dominant. And then it becomes kind of creepy, right, when it's they will whisper terrible things, right? And those are the sort of urchins, right? Well, some will feel like urchins. Well, what? Line up with the others, Kathy. Kathy, you just mentioned it, right? Line up with what others? So it's like, like if you're in a garden, maybe those are other plants. Maybe those are other, plants in a row that have been planted. But by the end of the poem, when it's, father and mother, I'm like, why is that compound? Why is the title compound, other than maybe like fusing two things together, right? Like the mother and the father is what makes this person. But then the poem is pulling you away from that primal fusing to this like weird, like refusal of them and joining with somebody else, right? And this other power of like, I will wash you and starve you and love you like no other, right? Like that's a pretty bold and haunting line.
There's also a lot of color in the poem that for some reason is sticking in my mind too. Like the concept of your mind being a blue rose is mentioned a few
Mm-hmm.
times, and the black oil, and then we come towards the end, there's a blood soaked rose.
Yeah, and there's a red brain and
Yes.
black stars. You're right. There's a lot of color use. Uh, I know my own aesthetic, and I do. We're not here. We just went out. Or am I back? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you perfectly,
Something,
Kathy.
yeah,
There.
I heard
something
that.
totally blanked out for Michelle and I. But
Oh, weird.
I know that my aesthetic likes things to be a little more concrete and a little more literal. And so now that we have
Well,
done
I
it,
also,
go ahead.
yeah, if we, I mean, for me, there's so much of this poem was about trying to.
Yeah.
So we have the, open your legs to the rain. Even the rose imagery was very like female anatomy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and like I started to wonder, and again, it isn't very literal. I think it's open to these ideas. Like, are we on a compound, like as a
Oh, yeah.
place? Are we
Yeah.
participating in some type of kind
Right.
of closed society? This idea that you have to go back to the garden, you have to be planted, and you're one of many, and it's like this inescapable
Yeah.
thing that is, I think, as much social, perhaps even religious, as it is natural or nature based, right? So I kind of wonder about the purity
Mm-hmm.
imagery there too.
Well, Miriam, if you take compound to reference like a sort of cult social occult society, right? Like the poem clicks into place in a way, right? Which is it is a kind of like brainwashing, right? It's like you're washing your past away from you, like step on the father, step on the mother, refuse them, right? Like the poem gains more sense in a way. But without that piece, without that understanding of compound, that connotation, it's pretty slippery.
Yeah, and I also think there's something about, thinking of it as a compound. You're part of a system that has these rules, so uh, you have to deny your parents, but you're still part of the same system. You're still planted somewhere. There's still someone in charge of you. So that's kind of another thing that made me feel that that was a possibility.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there a reference to like Stockholm syndrome in a way? Like this line that says, I will sing
Mm-hmm.
to you and wash you and starve you and love you like no other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, it sounds like torture and brainwashing and
And that would work
all
with the
kinds of
yeah, that would work with the title.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, guys, so this poet submitted a whole batch of poems, I think 5 or 6. And when we contacted her, and even during our reading process, she let us know, like a great poet, that some of her work was accepted elsewhere. So I'm wondering, sometimes when we get a group from one person, we make a decision to read another poem by that same author and see if it helps us actually kind of unpack the other one. What do you guys think?
I think we should definitely take a look at another poem by Kristin Bock. And I will say that I was one of the readers in this batch and was a real champion of her prose poetry. The other poems that were in the batch, many of them were prose poems. So I'm a champion of her work. So the next poem though is not a prose poem, and it's called Matchmakers. Ready? Can I
Mary,
read it?
you know what?
Is
I
this
don't
one
want
of
to. Go ahead, Mary. You're probably asking the same question.
is this one of the ones that was accepted elsewhere?
No, neither of these were
No.
accepted elsewhere. That's why we're able to discuss them today. But I do think that maybe we should speak a bit about the theme. I'm not quite sure if the
Oh
whole
yeah.
group was accepted for was
Yeah.
submitted toward monsters. I think it was. And
So I think that's an important point to make, actually. So I believe the whole batch was submitted for one of the themed issues that we're working to fill, which is the monsters issue. And one of the things that we often talk about here in Abu Dhabi, and certainly in New York and in the Philadelphia editorial staff as well, is how much readers enjoy the themed issues that we have done. And in the past, we've done a food issue, we've done a pirates issue, we've done film issues, the humor issue. So they're really quite successful, but they are really hard to fill. And I just want to say a word about why I think that is. And it's because we're not necessarily soliciting from known writers, and we're not soliciting for special pieces for the issue. What we're doing is open call invitation to writers to submit to these issues, and then we read from the slush pile. And as you know from listening to the last podcast, and perhaps at the beginning of this podcast, the whole point of what we do is to pay careful attention to all of the poems that are submitted to PBQ. And it takes us a while to read because each poem is read by 3 people. And the point of this conversation is to sort of pull the veil back and share what goes into making these decisions. So that said, the slow process and the careful reading that we do makes it really hard to fill some of these themed issues, if that makes sense.
Well, sure. Let's just, monsters. We did have people that thought we literally meant poems about vampires and werewolves. So we had that. And I think even just as hard, let's just say equally hard, humor. And we don't even have to take that much time to explain it. But when we were looking for poems for the humor issue, it was really difficult to say, is this truly funny? Is this funny on the page? Will this be funny in 6 months? Right? Is it funny if you read it a second time? We had wanted to do the humor issue, thought about it for years, and then finally jumped off the cliff and did it, and it was tough. Right now the themed issues that are still falling into place are monsters and locals, and you can see information on those themes online. And this one is more clearly targeted toward the monster issue, this one that Marion's going to read for us now, Matchmakers.
Yeah. Okay, so Matchmakers. Where does your monster sleep? In a cage too small for him. What does your monster's heart look like? Like a child's teacup, small and full of blood. What color is he? Green, of course. What does he eat? Basically, nose to tail. Cataracts? Installed. Fins? Cauterized. Fangs? Restored. Good. He's healthy then? Yes, he takes ratfish liver oil from a 300-million-year-old chimeric fish, half skate, half shark. It lives at the very bottom of the sea and has a face like a rat. Legend has it Norwegian Vikings would hang a ratfish up by the head, and the liver oil would drip from its long tail. They named the elixir gold of the ocean and considered it to be very rare and a precious gift. There are many other fish oils on the market, but he prefers this one. Excellent. He should make some fine little monsters. One last question. Does he have any issues? Well, only if you count his fear of snow globes. Oh, come on, snow globes? Yes, they remind him of his childhood. His father was a snowman and his mother was an icicle. It snowed each and every day. His father cried tears of fire, for they begat a daughter named Wendy, who, after 15 years of unforgivable acts of kindness, was sent to live among the moose. Forget it. My monster's not like that at all. And that's Matchmakers.
Well, funny that I would just talk about the humor issue, because the first response that Michelle and I are having on this one is giggles.
Yeah.
Deal breaker, major deal breaker.
You don't want to laugh on the monster issue?
You don't. Why is that a deal breaker, Michelle?
I'm just the last line. Forget it. My monster's not like that at all. So apparently having childhood issues is a deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so it's not a deal breaker for the poem, it's a deal breaker in the poem. Got
Yeah.
you.
Got it. Well, I guess one of the things we'll see too when we have the show notes up is the poem is it's a dialogue, obviously, and the way the poet sort of signals that is every other line is italicized, right? So one voice speaks in non-italicized line and the other voice speaks in italics. So on the page, it's sort of, fun to watch the dialogue unfold.
I did kind of like when at the point where the one speaker says, good, he's healthy then, and then there's just like this explosion of information. And I think that was, in addition to being funny, I think that when you're trying to set two people up, that there's just this moment where you can't help but share what is perhaps too much information. And I thought that the truth of that in the dialogue was what made it funny.
Yeah, yeah.
I also kind of wondered if we were talking about internal monsters. You think about what makes you compatible with someone and you wonder, like, are our demons the same or are our monsters the same?
Yeah,
and there's both this funny way of thinking about it as an actual entity on its own, this monster, and then I also thought it could be read as trying to get two people together and how do their monsters match up.
I like that reading of it. Yeah, I think for me, I was a reluctant, I'm a reluctant reader on this one in a way, right? Because I was such a fan of the prose poems that Bock had submitted. So when I first read this on the page, the sort of catechism quality, like the question and answering, like just it pushed me away from the poem. But reading it out loud was super, super fun. I will give it that, right? Like trying to inhabit those two voices was just a lot of fun. And especially when it tumbled into the longer answers about ratfish and the father being a snowman and the mother the icicle.
I mean, I'm thinking in the way that nobody else can think about other pieces that are already in the issue. And this would be, I don't know, if I call it a refreshing break, is that a wrong sentiment to have? Well, I said it, so it's too late.
Well, wait, Kathleen, why would calling a poem refreshing or a break be a problem? Right? Like,
Well,
is it because there's humor here, or?
Yeah, maybe because it's I'm thereby implying that it's lighter, that it's less. We have to think less, all of those things. But if those are the author's intentions, then it's not a bad thing, right? To be easier to unpack, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's so I have to be like. I feel like I need to confess this. I was so charmed by the other poems that have been accepted elsewhere. These are not my favorite poems of the batch. And so I'm under the influence of those other pieces that are not up for conversation. So I feel really conflicted. Like there's a lot about these that I like, but I didn't like them as much as some of the other pieces, right? So I can see their strengths, but I find myself a little bit like sort of lukewarm rather than totally enthusiastic. So I'm working hard to sort of like clear my head and just think about the two that we're looking at, right? And wondering, okay, well, what would it look like if we ran a prose poem and this more conventional thing, this more conventional Matchmakers, which it starts out looking like a poem, but then actually looks like on the page like a short play, right? Like it really feels like a dialogue. And it might be cool to see like two pieces next to each other, but then the question is, are these two pieces the best that we can publish by Kristin Bock, right? Like, do we want them in the magazine? Do we like them enough?
Well, I actually think that thinking about them, facing each other or both in the same, monsters issue, they're both about the value systems under which these relationships are constructed. So I was almost sticking up for the monsters, like, why is it important that their fins are quarterized? Or when you think about like the criteria for making a good match, like, so what if he eats something weird or doesn't eat nose to tail or whatever it is? And I think that the fact that, you know, it's funny, this value system is funny in the way that Compound was not. I think, you know, asks the reader something about what we're willing to consider kind of the light sides of what might be romantic relationships or sexual relationships or matchmaking, and what is really actually the dark and disgusting underpinnings of our romantic notions.
I like your brain, Miriam, higher. Like, actually, you're persuading me. You're persuading me. I was sort of grumpy because other magazines moved faster than we did and grabbed up these other poems. But I do think actually, like, putting these two poems next to each other and thinking about the two little, you know, universes of logic that each creates, they're funky. She's got a funky thing going on here, and I think I would like to see these in the Monsters show.
It's fun to have them next to each other as well. I mean, really, that's I think what I was saying about all of it. Even the refreshing break part, like that first one is exhausting, not in a bad way, but you got to really work, right? Unless you just want those words to spill over you. And then the second one is so easy. It's kind of cool what they do with each other, for sure. Are you guys ready to vote? Because I think we could move on to another poet.
Are we talking about? I'm sorry, I'm freshly in the meeting.
Jason, I was gonna introduce you in a second.
Compound and Matchmakers.
Yes, but you're here just in time to vote.
Yes, and okay, I'm ready to vote.
Okay. All right. Well, we are 5 now, so let's do them one at a time. Let's go for Compound first. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3, vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, are we saying yes out loud?
I guess we, yeah. With all the other technical problems we had today, let's just say yes out loud. Michelle and Michelle and I in the studio did stick our thumbs up, so we're
all right. So my thumb is up.
My
thumb is 9 hours ahead of you.
Okay.
Have we explained that our vote that our possible votes are thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs sideways?
We don't do thumbs sideways, Jason Schneiderman. I don't know where you work, but
that's a New York thing. We have thumbs sideways in New York. We do.
Well, we go balls out.
Thumbs 45 degrees up. 45 degrees down.
You can do what you can do what you like up there in Philly. We go balls out, and
we do not do.
We commit. So, all right, but I think it's a unanimous in. And Matchmakers, are we ready? 1, 2, 3, vote. We're split in Philly. Philly has a split.
Yes.
I just think I don't know if the poem's strong enough. The second poem. I wasn't really captured until Oh Come On, Now Snow Globes, and then talking about the childhood issues and I really like the final line, forget it, my monster's not like that at all, but as a whole, I just don't think that it's strong enough.
Well, I think it's interesting that you said that you're captured toward the end, because I think that there is a deepening that happens. And the fact that there's these criteria that the monster kind of seems to pass, right? Like, there's no problem till the very end. And I think that that's also part of the poem's construction, right? That as you get further on, you get deeper into the weeds of whether somebody would make sense for somebody else.
It's funny because I actually that change in the last part where suddenly it seems to be about comparing monsters instead of figuring out what the monster is like was a little hard for me on the first read, and then I actually came to like it more as I read it. But actually I was really engaged in the first part, and then it was that second part that actually kind of was less less exciting to me the first couple times I read it.
Hi, you guys, I'm back.
Oh, I didn't know you were gone.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what happened there, but I think that in the vote now we have one yes and one no in Philly, and two yeses in two different places in New York. And what does Abu Dhabi say?
Well, Abu Dhabi was just kicked off the call for about 2 minutes, and so I don't even know what poem you're talking about.
Matchmakers. We're still on
A,
Matchmakers.
You're still on okay, so I missed the Matchmakers. So Jason, I'm going to ask you, could you turn your video off?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking that might increase the bandwidth. Maybe this is
I don't know how to turn it off though.
Okay, first of all, you look
there it goes.
adorable. I love the beard, by the way.
Thank you.
So yeah, so I would say yes to Matchmakers as long as we run it next to Compound. I think I'm charmed by the two pieces together. So that would be my vote.
Okay, so that's 4 against 1. All right, good for you, Kristin. Sorry, Michelle. Jason, we had gone around this virtual room and had everybody say who they are and where they're calling from. So since you just joined the party, why don't you tell us?
Thank you, and I apologize for being late. I will blame it on both technical difficulties and my own incompetence. But I am Jason Schneiderman. I am associate editor at Painted Bride Quarterly, and I am currently the head of the New York staff.
Woo!
Wee. All right.
Yay!
So listen, we really do have to roll. So the next in the lineup is Roger Camp, but we could put his away and do another monster if we wanted, and move to Cristina Baptista. That monster?
I would say, yeah, let's talk about the Cristina Baptista. I think that's a great. I really want to talk about that poem.
Okay, terrific.
Yes.
Okay, Jason, do you also really want to read it?
I vote for Jason reading.
All right.
Thank you. Monster. Where the cut has dried over, you find red crystals in your hair, sugar from a child's cupcake, lost Valentine glitter, crushed stained glass beneath your heel in the monastery. I first saw you outlined against that window triptych, you blotting out San Sebastian's image, all mass and shadow, an absorbent dark sponge, stealing his wings for your own.
Who said that yay? Was that you, Jason?
I think that was Marion.
Oh, Marion.
Are you shuffling? Is someone shuffling papers? Like, I'm just hearing all of this, like, paper shuffling in someone's microphone.
It's me. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize my mic was picking up the shuffling of paper. But I definitely thought the mic would pick up my whispered yes. I feel like I want to be like the ghost in the machine, as in, yes.
What are you saying?
Awesome. I want to hear Jason Schneiderman say, find red crystals in your hair again.
Yeah, I love that opening where the cut has dried over, you find red crystals in your hair. I mean, that description of a scab healing is so invigorating, right? I mean, it just really makes like what it's talking about, and it makes it so exciting.
And that's why like colored sugar from a child's cupcake is really a lovely juxtaposition right there, because we're describing a scab in this beautiful way, right?
Yeah. And then that tumble to lost Valentine glitter, crushed stained glass beneath your heel, right? Like it sort of tumbles into a much more like that sort of like from head to toe sort of image. It's great.
Jason, I was going to say, didn't the New York staff just accept another poem featuring Saint Sebastian?
Oh.
We did. We had this long talk about gay men and Saint Sebastian. And
I just love
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wait, and Jason, what was it like? Like the conventional understanding of Saint Sebastian is the martyrdom through arrows,
right?
But that's not how he died, right?
Right. The representation of Saint Sebastian is always being shot full of arrows, but he actually survived being shot full of arrows, despite that being the image we have of him, and his actual martyrdom is just being beaten to death by soldiers. which
Right.
is less picturesque.
Just a bit.
But
Yeah.
I'm hoping someone can explain to me that transition, because right, like we go into the scab kind of flaking off, and then there are these, this series of images, the fine red crystals, the colored sugar, the Valentine glitter, the crust stained glass, and then I saw you outlined against that window, and I'm kind of like, I get a
Sorry.
little lost there.
Yeah, I read it as there's a physical person standing in front of Saint, like a triptych that features
Right.
Saint Sebastian, right? So there's this moment where you're in this scene, like where the cut has dried over, without knowing the significance of it. And I think that the transition is to explain the significance that I first saw you outlined against that window.
Yeah.
So we don't really know why we're in this descriptive moment until that point, I guess.
I'm thinking of a church, and I went to a church where there was like stained glass, like pictures on the window, like it was the window. And I'm thinking like the crushed stained glass beneath your heel, it makes me feel like whoever's in the poem, did they kick the window out with their heel?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking, but I'm not sure.
Well, it sort of doesn't make
Crushed.
sense, right? I mean, I saw you outlined against that window, and I think it's the window that's a triptych, right? Not the person.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it's common to have, 3 images together in a stained glass window, a
Yes.
triptych. And then it's in front of a stained glass window. The person that was seen, the you, is in front of this picture of Saint Sebastian, who doesn't have wings, right? Like,
No.
and yeah, I mean, like, it's sort of like I don't think I guess I'm really asking, like, should I mind that I don't really, like, the coherence does not become narrative, right? Like, I think if he wants us to cohere as a narrative, like, it doesn't.
Well, I actually wonder, so I also read it as the person was in front of the window, but now I'm wondering, is it possible that the person's not in front of the window, but this is a shadow, right? When you think of like the all mass and shadow and absorbent dark sponge, that this is something that you're, I don't know the science of this, but this is something that you're seeing like just a blotch over Saint Sebastian?
Yeah, because of the way the light is, you can't see the actual details of the person, right? So they're the absorbent dark sponge.
Oh yeah.
And
Right. So I'm thinking,
That's
yeah.
right.
and I think that things happened in reverse order, you guys. I think where the cut has dried over is more of a now, and I first saw you in front, right? So that the narrative is, we go back in time, as it were. The immediate present.
Oh.
The immediate present is the cut and the stained glass beneath your heel, right?
I'm reading
Yeah,
it that
I
way
mean,
as well.
narratively, the first time I saw you was in a church, and now you're healing from some kind of headwind.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
I
see.
agree.
Yes, that's what I think.
I think it works that way too. I think the poem
Right.
works when we read it that way.
And actually, Jason, I mean, there could be a Saint Sebastian image that has wings. I mean, if he is a saint now, right?
Are you guys hearing that noise?
Yeah, this happened last time. It's
I'm really sorry.
Oh, is that your cuckoo clock?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Apologies.
I'm sorry, Kathy. But about Saint Sebastian can have wings if you want him to.
Well, sure, if he's a saint. I could think people could depict him with the wings if he's a saint.
But only angels get wings, right? I mean, saints never get wings.
I don't know.
The conventional depiction of Saint Sebastian, right? He's tied to a tree or a pole or something. There's arrows hanging in him, and there's usually like an angel above him, right? Like, so that's the sort of conventional, like painterly rendition. But as a saint in a window, right? Maybe they're not depicting the martyrdom, so maybe he does have wings as a saint.
I mean,
right?
that's what
Like, the saint
Jason also said at the beginning. It's less pretty to imagine him with the arrows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I took that back out of thinking about the shape and just thought about like stealing his holiness for your own, or stealing his divine something for your own.
Yeah, I think I ultimately I like the poem enough to kind of not care.
Yeah. Okay. So then help me with this one. Why
Not-
is it
not
called
ki-
monster?
I want to know what you mean. You don't care about what, just that small bit. Yeah.
I mean, saints are never represented with wings. Like there is no iconography.
Okay. But you're gonna
There's
let it
no
go.
Christian iconography that's going to make it into a stained glass window in which a saint has wings. And you're right. Like an angel would have wings and could be above Sebastian. But I don't. Like, I mean, I sort of. I think that this stained glass triptych is capacious enough that I don't need the wings to be on Saint Sebastian
Yeah.
for the poem to work. But monster, because I mean, this person has suffered a serious head wound. Like, you feel monstrous. Like I was just. This has nothing to do with the poem. I was just driven when I took the Bolt bus back from Philly. The bus driver had a serious. Like, I mean, he looked like someone. He had like a giant keloid scar, almost like Omar on The Wire, and his skull looked like it had been cleaved with an axe. Like, I mean, it looked like I mean, there was like clearly his skull had been in more than one piece at one point, and it was kind of amazing, and like it was sort of beautiful, and I spent a long time looking at it, and but I understand, like, obviously if that's on your face, you're gonna feel monstrous, right? I don't want a head wound. I don't think anyone wants a head wound. And so the idea that, kind of like all of this imagery of kind of martyrdom and beauty and glamour that's sort of coming through the actual experience of a head wound healing, I understand that relationship to monster.
But do we think that the person has done some violence? Like, how did that glass, like, how did the wound happen? It could also be a monstrous deed, right? That they,
right,
in addition to blotting out Saint Sebastian's image, maybe broke a window or somehow altered the scene there.
Yeah. I think that's what Michelle was saying, right? It'll make maybe like you've kicked the window out,
right?
Right. But that dark absorbent sponge that that shadow, that's kind of scary too, right? When you see somebody and you can't identify them and only see a black. When I first saw you, I couldn't see you, right? Is what the author is saying. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, do you think we're ready to vote? We're ready to vote in Philadelphia.
We're ready in my office. Or I am by myself.
You're ready. We will have to think of a awesome way to see your votes as well. But because we do the 1, 2, 3 vote, maybe you could all yell it at the same time. That would be super fun. Let's try it. Let's try it. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? We'll use thumbs and you use your voices. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3, vote.
Yes.
Oh, that wasn't together at all. Try it again. 1, 2, 3, vote.
Yes.
You're really bad at this. You were really bad at this.
I clearly believe that there should not be a beat between 3 and the shout. There should be a beat between the 3 and the shout.
With the time zones and the technical difficulties tonight, we are pretty close to being on point.
I don't. I want to go for that triptych. One more time.
Oh,
okay.
Kathleen, that's
listen,
hysterical.
is there going to be a go first? That's the problem. Is 1, 2, 3 go or just 1, 2, 3 vote?
1, 2, 3 vote. I think
Okay,
it's 1, 2, 3
so
vote.
it's 1, 2, 3 vote, then you speak. Okay.
Okay.
Are you going to say? Okay.
I'm going to say 1, 2, 3 vote, and then you're going to yell your answer. 1, 2, 3 vote.
Yes. I'm still,
Thank God we're not a band. Thank God we are not a band. Jeez, oh man.
You know the joke, right? What's the one thing you can't teach?
What?
Timing.
Well, you know what the thing is I'm really glad about how much dramatic tension we just had for our audience right now with those multiple votes. But so our enthusiasm is real for Cristina Baptista. We said yes like 16 times, so that's pretty good for 15 people being in the room.
15?
I'm kidding. There's only joke. Oh, things are deteriorating.
I'm also a very literal person.
So because It is not 10 p.m. for me. We still have some real life stuff to do. I think Miriam does too. Let's have a vote if we should read The Part of My Father Will Be Played by Jack Nicholson or close up shop. I could squeeze one more in, but I still have to teach today.
I think we should do it.
I always want to squeeze one more in.
Squeeze one more
Well,
in.
listen,
That's a
I-
PBQ motto if there ever was one.
Unless I think that we're like too tired to be fair to the poem. Like that's the only time like I'll try to actually end a meeting.
Well,
if we're
it's
too tired to be fair.
But darling, it's not 10 p.m. for you. You better not be too tired.
Well, 10
Right?
p.m.
Okay.
You're in New York.
Hello. All right.
That's
so
when
listen,
I'm just opening the
have to
bottle of.
tell you, I'm good until 10:30, and I cannot figure out how to turn this cuckoo clock off. So it's gonna strike again at 10:30. So let's
Okay.
have that be
I think
our-
we'll be done
our
before then.
calendar.
I think we'll be done before then.
I don't think this will take that long.
Because we're learning as we're going, I also think that we should come up with a T-shirt every episode. And then our huge fan base can maybe, vote on them or just make them and send them to us or something. So
Kind of like the Angels have the box.
Yeah. So this week it will be squeeze one more in.
Okay.
And last week I think I'm going to vote right now for you said wank, not wank. What was the word?
It's wang.
Swack.
Wang.
Swack.
W-A-N-G.
No. Oh, was it?
The poem
Wang,
was thwack.
okay.
I think the poem was thwack, and then the exclamation was wang, which
Okay.
is,
All
a
right.
complicated
So
lovely word.
you said wang exclamation point is T-shirt from episode 1. Squeeze one
Okay.
more in is the T-shirt from episode 2. I hope somebody's writing this down. But now, who would like to read? And who? I'm sorry. I better stop talking because I don't have her last name on this piece of paper. Marion, do you still
Yep,
have submittable up? Can you grab?
I do. Hold on just one sec. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, let's decide who would like to read this. Michelle, would you like to read it?
Why not? Sure.
Okay. So just give Marion 1 second to grab the writer's
Hold on a
name
minute.
so she
Yep.
can announce the writer because that's super duper important. And then you can jump in from the title.
Sorry, y'all. My submittable's quite slow. Hold on. Jenny. You're the girl for me.
All right,
It's
well,
Jenny Malbouf.
Malboof.
No.
Malboof.
Is it? Yeah. So it's father, other, monster.
Yeah, but
hold
we're
on.
going
Is
to
that
read.
possibly right.
That sounds right. I knew it was French, and the one we're reading is The Part of My Father Will Be Played by Jack Nicholson. So
Okay, let me just double check.
I'm checking my email too. We'll cut this
Yep,
part
got
out.
it. I got it. It's Jenny Malbouf.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna cut all that out. So now you can say Jenny Malbouf, right?
Say it again.
We'll let Mary say it one more time. So, Mary, why don't you say, Michelle will read the poem by Jenny Malbouf.
So Michelle will read the poem by Jenny Malbouf called The Part of My Father Will Be Played by Jack Nicholson.
Big white teeth. My brother reminds me he isn't Irish, but the brows are the same. Horned and intense, he'll do a plum job. In the scene, something isn't right. The lighting is strange. The furniture that was there is now here, or gone entirely. Someone is standing in the background that wasn't just before, and that yawn sounds like a door closing or opening. Everything looks normal, but one thing has blood on it. I didn't mention the scariest part. Jump cut. A man in a bear suit. You can't help but like him. He commands attention with broad arms or bright eyes when seated. His face looks crooked in the wrong direction when you glance together in the mirror.
Okay, thank you.
I love your voice.
Thank you.
I have never met you, but I think you are a wonderful reader.
Aw.
Michelle is a poet, and she likes to read her poetry at slams and
I like to
things
hear
around
it.
the city. Yeah.
Aw.
I like all of these images. That's what I get. Like everything that I love Jack Nicholson, but who doesn't? The whole I don't know. I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out, but what I am seeing is fun. You know, I don't know. The part of my father will be played by Jack Nicholson. That's a crazy great title too.
Yeah, it
for
is.
me.
I sort of like it until the jump cut, and the jump cut just really doesn't work for me. I mean, I get it, but it feels. I know it's obviously it's a big tonal shift, and I don't know. It was hard for me to kind of like. It seemed a little silly, and something that was kind of holding me in a different way.
Well, I mean, from the beginning, really, you're not already like in a weird place because of the part of my father will be played by Jack Nicholson, and the brother saying he isn't Irish, but the brows are the same. Like that's kind of light to me. The lighting is strange. I don't know. I mean, I don't know where I am. I'm having a hard time knowing where I am. And
So
I mean
I
that.
think that's it, Kathleen. Like my brain wants to know where I am, right? And not in a bad way. It's not like grasp. It's like grabbing for it, right? But big white teeth. My brother reminds me he is an Irish. Like it's got to be like some sort of dream iteration of this person's life, and in that dream, the father's played by Jack Nicholson, right? And if that's the case, then it's not just Jack Nicholson. It's like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, right?
Right,
Like there's
sure.
something about the strange lighting and the bear suit and the blood, right?
And
like,
yeah.
And The Shining is such a story of family psychodrama, psychoterror, right?
Right.
Especially the Kubrick iteration of it, right? Is like it's both reserved and totally freaky, creepy, and that feels like the contain, like that illusion is the sort of container for the poem,
right? Yep.
Can you explain that last line, or that last sentence? His face looks crooked in the wrong direction when you glance together in the mirror.
Yeah, so I'm working pretty hard at that, right? Like I don't know if it works rhythmically, but it's also, I'm not sure if it's a direct reference to one of two things, which is that creepy ass scene in the film where Nicholson's dancing with this beautiful woman who then becomes the sort of moldering dead body. Remember that? And and that happens as he's looking in a mirror. I believe he's looking in a mirror when that happens, right? And then there's also the final scene, or the final sort of camera move of the close up on that painting from the overlook, where it's like the guests, and then it moves closer in, and lo and behold, Jack Nicholson's one of the guests, right? Yeah. So I don't know. It's like there's something about the uncanniness and the inversions that film sets up that seems to get picked up here, but I can't quite catch the moment, right?
Yeah. My read is that it does recall. I didn't think of the second moment, but I thought of the moment where he's dancing and then in the mirror sees what he's really dancing with. I think it's that whole thing. My father, myself. Reflection of yourself and your parents and vice versa. His face looks crooked in the wrong direction. So the mirror, which should be reflecting him in one direction, is reflecting him the wrong way. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. We see each other opposite of how we are. Well, it's crooked on the wrong side. I just see this face in a mirror. I see Jack Nicholson actually. But instead of being flipped, he's not flipped. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It wasn't.
Am I the only one who hasn't seen this?
Oh, you didn't see The Shining?
No,
oh my
I have
goodness.
not seen The Shining.
When I read this,
go and watch that movie.
When I read this poem,
it's a strange one. Yeah.
Go ahead, Michelle.
When I read this poem by myself, like not having any reference to the film, I felt like completely lost. So I'm thinking, as someone who hasn't seen it, like, does it work?
Right.
Because when you guys Sorry, go ahead.
Why are we saying that it's The Shining? Is it because of the man in the bear suit? Is that in The Shining?
Yeah, I think. Well, is it? I mean, isn't there? Yeah, because there's a guy who's he takes off some
right,
sort
right.
of
I
head,
remember
right?
that. He takes off the right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Or maybe I don't know. There's somebody with a. I'm gonna have to Google it, right?
I'm
Somebody's
Googling
got
it
a
right
costume.
now.
Oh,
It looks like
Raisha.
some weird sex act. Like there's like something
Right.
really, yeah. It's a guy in white tie with like a dude in a bear suit.
Yeah, that's it. The dude in the bear suit.
Sure.
Like, totally creepy.
Right. Jack Nicholson's eyebrows are always horned and intense, but they are especially so as Jack in that in the movie.
Yeah.
So I think.
Yeah. No, but more than say like
so,
5 easy people. No, the man in the bear suit
right.
does it. That convinces me. Yes, we are talking about.
We are talking about The Shining, but to go to Michelle's point, boy, oh boy, is that illusion is like pretty buried in a way. Like it's trusting that it's speaking to a reader who knows the film, right? Like it's making the reader work pretty hard to catch the connection. But once you catch it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's The Shining, right? Like.
Yeah, well, I mean, to defend the poem, could we say that you get one thing out of the poem if you don't know that film and you get another thing if you do? Does the film inform the poem or is the film necessary for the poem? I think that might be a crucial thing.
Well, I have to say, if you guys are criticizing or critiquing the jump cut only makes sense if the film is in conversation with the poem, for me, right? Or the poem has to be read as a dream. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just the sort of like jump cut juxtaposition of like a dreamy montage. Right.
Well, I think as soon as, I mean, jump cut could mean any film though, right? Or a dreamy montage. It doesn't have to be The Shining. We already know we're on a film set because the part of my father will be played by Jack Nicholson, right? And then we have lighting and scene and all that other stuff. So we're seeing a soundstage or a film set of some sort.
I mean, Jason Zuzka used to do this a lot. Like there would all these, Tonight Mom will be played by Katie Couric, and like all these sort of things. And it was always kind of for me about a way of distancing yourself from your own life, kind of seeing yourself as the protagonist in some kind of resolvable story rather than kind of actually having to live with the messiness of life and who's going to play you in the movie sort of thing. Is that what's going on here, or is there something else? I mean, to me it seems like like sort of acknowledging that one's father is a monster, and that like by transposing it into The Shining, things become intelligible, right? Like if I try to explain to you what's going on, you're not going to understand. But if I tell you, or if I tell myself, right, that this is this cultural production that does make sense, it's kind of it's a metaphor, right? I mean, it's a basic.
Yeah, but I want to add to it too, like that appearance of the you. Am I mistaken? There's no you in the poem until the second to last stanza and the last stanza, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's something kind of weird about that pronoun too. Like suddenly the reader's implicated, right? So are we implicated as audience, right? Like, and I think that was part of the creepiness of that film, right? Like the sort of weird sense of spectating on this family dysfunction, right? And like the poem is kind of doing that with the reader too. So it's like I get the sense that the you isn't just me, but it's like the reader more broadly is being positioned in front of this mirror, and now we're all caught up in the deeply creepy Freudian stuff.
Right.
That's also kind of funny, right? Like it's being distanced, right? It's being presented in a way that gives the speaker some distance on it, and the reader is suddenly complicit.
So I don't, as I just revealed, I have never seen The Shining, and I've been kind of quiet because I really like this poem and I'm trying to figure out why. And I think that part of it is that when we're thinking about the premise of, you can imagine like you're sitting around and you know, it's almost like a party game, like who would play so and so in a movie, or who, you know, who would. And there's obviously a conversation that's been happening, right? Like the speaker and the speaker's brother are discussing this, because the brother does this fact check, like he isn't Irish, and we learn that that's something important to this family. And by the time I get to this idea of a man in a bear suit, and again, having not seen the movie, I kind of, I'm interested in thinking of a patriarch as a man in a bear suit, right? As somebody who has this kind of, obviously has this humanity, but is playing a particular role vis-a-vis the rest of the family. And I was on a film set or whatever, and I think that because I didn't get the reference, or I didn't even really know that there was something specific there, I thought I was in a developing story, right? I thought I was in the thought experiment as it rolled out. And I kind of liked that. Like, if you think of the speaker, it thinks that the father will be played by Jack Nicholson and then has to figure out why, kind of piggybacking off what Jason said. I thought that was good.
Yeah. Yeah. And the you is the audience, right? The you, I think that's why the you doesn't come until then, because now here's the audience's reaction to this. You can't help but like him. He commands attention.
Yeah, right. And then you got that creepy compression at the end. It's like when you glance together in the mirror. So it's like now the audience is like in the scene with them, right? So that it's a slippery little gesture that makes it pretty intense.
Yeah. Guys, are we ready to vote? Are we ready to try our chorus again?
Kathy, I have a question first.
Yeah.
I don't think, did this come in to be considered for monsters?
I think
It
so.
did, right?
Yep.
So I happen to have submittable open. Please consider the following poems for the monsters issue.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's where I've been focusing my reading energies. So, shall we? And that does help in the. I'm sorry, Miriam, that wasn't made more apparent, but yeah, that helps us in our decision making, I think. So, let's do it, guys. I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, vote, and after I finish that T on vote, I want to hear it. Okay, New York and Abu Dhabi, 2 spots in New York and Abu Dhabi. Let's do it. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, vote.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
We did it that time. We didn't all say the same word, but so we have 2 yeses in the audio studio in Philly, and I heard at least 1 yes out there in the void.
I think you heard two yeses.
All right, Marion and Miriam, you were
really
so
well.
in sync.
And I want to say that I really do like respect this poem, and I actually really like this poem. It's just I don't think it's ready.
Okay. All right. Well, you're outvoted, Mr. Schneiderman, Dr. Schneiderman.
As I so often am.
And
I know how it feels.
Yeah, it happens.
I'm gonna
It
take
happens
my
to
bear suit
all
and
of
go
us.
home.
It happens to the best of us. So, that's it. I don't mean to rush our ending, and we're going to have to edit this one anyway with all these technological difficulties we had today. But thanks for joining us for episode 2. So that's it. Come back for episode 3. Thank you.
All right.